Roger, when people drive in my opinion, the first thing they notice is this building, the Quaternary Institute. What's the background to this building?
When we first came to this property in 1987, one of the buildings that was on the property was this old shed. We discovered that it had been brought here in the early 1990s. A church building that was probably made in the 1800s, half a church building, and they brought it here on a dray, horses and dray, and they set it up as a bunkhouse for the milk hands. And it had that function for quite a period of time. By the time we arrived, it was being used as a motorbike repair shop. But very quickly, my daughters took it over and it became a classroom, with my oldest daughter becoming Anne of Green Gables and the younger daughters being her students. It was a little while after that, it probably took about 4 or 5 years before them to lose interest in teaching themselves. And so I was able to take over the building and use it as a modelling studio. When I first encountered the Shakespeare material in 1995, it really became my study, and so I added a triple hung window on the front, and gradually the pictures and the shelves and the books started to accumulate until around about the year 2000, after talking to a considerable number of academics internationally, local experts in Shakespeare and even sonnet, highly honoured sonnet experts, I realised that what I had was something very unique and not known in the tertiary world. So I instituted the Quaternary Institute and created a website, and that was the beginning of the Quaternary Institute.
Roger, how does the creation of the Quaternary Institute fit in with your scholarship of Shakespeare?
By the time I had canvassed a huge number of opinions internationally by email or by visiting people, I realised that no one had any idea of what I was talking about. Consequently, I looked back at Shakespeare and I thought, what is it that he's doing, and did he understand what he was doing in terms of the sort of philosophy, the overarching philosophy that was very apparent in the sonnets as the basis for the plays. And I began reflecting on the Globe Theatre, and why they called it the Globe. And it occurred to me that not only does it represent the globe as the world or the earth and maps effectively our relationship or the relationship of natural life on the earth, it also is a skull or the interior of the human mind. And so Shakespeare makes this very, very connected relationship, an isomorphic relationship between the way in which the world works and the way in which our minds work. In fact, funny enough, the book that I wrote has a summary volume to the 4 volumes that we published in 2005. The first book that we published after that was called Shakespeare's Global Philosophy for that reason, because here we are, we're relating the world or the globe and how our minds work. So I then started to think, well, what is it about the level of understanding that we're talking about? What does it mean for a quaternary, for instance, to be postulated as a completely new level of learning above primary, secondary, and tertiary? Does it effectively make tertiary into a secondary, as secondary is the tertiary? It seemed to be the case, because it's asking for a way of seeing and understanding the world that completely accepts nature, completely accepts natural phenomena and natural relationships, and effectively the way in which we think about it. And not only the way in which we think about it, in Shakespeare's case, the way in which we express ourselves and the way in which we emotively relate to it.
Roger, I'm fascinated by the suspended globe. What's going on?
Well, it was a bit of a joke, really, because the idea is that if Shakespeare has an overview of the earth and an overview of our relationship to the earth, the way in which we think and understand and love and have all those emotions on the planet, then somehow or other we're slightly outside of the earth. We're looking at the earth from the outside, and so that globe is, in terms of this building encompasses the globe. And I guess to turn that around, if I think of my journey over the last 50 years, then gradually I have peeled back layers and layers of misunderstanding to get to the point where I'm beginning to see, well, I was able to see in 1995 exactly what Shakespeare was saying.
Roger, what does this space say about you?
Well, when I look around after being here for 35 years and having material that comes from over a period of 50 years, I reflect that what is on the walls of this room is an image of my journey, a picture of my journey over those 50 years. It's as if somehow or other my head has been turned inside out. And so the building itself then becomes like the inside of my skull, as if it's a picture that you can see of what all the various aspects of my skull. And I contrast it, for instance, to what might be the standard academic study, where what you'll see in the background is just rows and rows of books related to that person's area of study, largely. In this case, the books relate to a whole journey, a whole life's journey, a process of discovery, a process of investigation, and a process of uncovering things that have never been seen before. So then means that what we have is a connection between the world around and the way in which we think about things, which is alive in this building. In fact, the building doesn't need to be permanent. It doesn't need to stay as it is, because effectively the Quaternary Institute, as a replica of a way of thinking, which is very alive in Shakespeare's work, is the unique understander and presenter of this particular form of philosophy.
Roger, when I visit you, invariably you were seated there in the Quaternary Institute, and the front door and the window was generally open.
I leave the window door. It's a triple-hung window which acts as a door, so it's as if I'm coming in through the window or pretty much stealing into my own space or stealing out of it. I leave it open all the time through all weathers, because it's like a skull in a way. It has to breathe, and breathing in and out with nature is an important part of the process. I find I'm sitting at my desk, I get up, I move around the property, I do things around the property, I come in and out of the door. There's no door to open and close. It's a free moving space, and that's part of the ideal that I have as well, that this material is free and available to anybody, and anybody can come and go. So the door's open all the time. It's not that I need people to come and see the material, because it's part of who they are. But if they do want to come and understand and live their lives in a particular sort of way, in tune with nature, in tune with the female and the male relationship, and in tune with the way in which we understand things, then this is the way to go, I think.